I start in a few seconds.
The first minister of the semifinals of ESL of UDDC. We start
sorry,
the
just
debate.
hold on. There was some.
Encendedor.
Sorry, I think it's just, sorry about the delay. But I just texted them and I just called them to get it sorted. Okay. It's like, can Okan just quickly send the link out so that people can join?
Should I wait?
Yeah, are we meant to wait for the link to be sent out?
Catherine, the stream is up. It's over to you.
Okay, the debate can start. So, yes, could I please welcome the Prime Minister?
Okay, so I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Panel, some definition. First of all, by employees, in this case, we are considering things, people who knew or should know that these crimes are being committed or have been committed, and 2, they have the power to stop this abuse. Second, when we are speaking of crimes committed in the scope of the employment, we are inclusive, saying things, crimes committed with or not the will to commit crimes, because we think if you just do like prosecute crimes with the will to do so, there simply will not be effective because everyone will say they didn't have the will. Some framing here. Child slavery, horrors perpetrated by soldiers overseas away from the public opinion, and even genocide. We think those crimes are so heinous in nature that we need effective and powerful tools to bring them to justice. 3 metrics in this debate. First, in which side of the house we have less of those crimes committed. Second of all, in which side we have more justice for the victims. Third, in a moral stand, who should be to blame about these crimes, the perpetrator or the person who is like hierarchy superior of the perpetrator. And a little disclaimer, this debate is not about the efficacy of international courts who have the jurisdiction to prosecute and judge cases of crimes against humanity, because this is asymmetric impact. We are talking specifically about the Vicarious doctrine, Vicarious liability doctrine. So this goes to both sides if they say like just that this shouldn't work because international courts don't work. This is for the both sides. First arguments: less war crimes and less crimes against humanity. We are working here with various scenarios. We're talking about soldiers that were ordered to do some crimes by generals, like commanded to use a forbidden weapon, or even without a direct command, did a war crime, like they committed rape in an occupation in another country, or even politicians that can benefit politically with things that are perpetrated by those subordinates. So you have, for example, the Guantanamo Bay, American prison, that the prisoners undergo torture, and the president of the United States, as the commander-in-chief, should be responsibilized for this if you can prove the link. So the first three things that we have that make less war crimes committed in our side. First, the most powerful parts now has the incentives to prevent this. They will look out for the subordinates on how they are executing their orders. They will not give bad orders that could be interpreted as leading to a war crime. And most effectively, they will be more preventive. That is to say, they will engage in things like programs of trainings and all other means to ensure that war crimes won't be committed and they won't be penalized. But the second thing is that they have the better means, the employers or the hierarchy superiors, they have the better means to prevent those crimes because they have something called the microvision. They see the whole. Instead, the subordinators have the microvision, and they are seeing on the specific situation and are continuously under pressure. They don't know what will happen to them if they don't do this. They maybe are under mental coercion, so they don't have the best judgment to see if that's okay or not. We think that microvision is better to prevent this crime. Third, we are attacking the root of the problem because you're not blaming who does the crime, but who permitted that the crime was done under their watch, and who in a lot of cases ordered the crime. So we think that you're attacking more the root of the problem when you don't attack the messenger. The second thing is justice for victims. We don't feel that if you prosecute a soldier, victims will feel like there is a lot of justice going on because they know the powerful people that are that ordered the soldier or permitted the soldier to do a horrible crime are not being prosecuted and are not being sued. So since those victims are the most vulnerable parts and they already suffered a damage, they already lost a lot. They can lose their property, they can lose their health, they can lose their close ones. So we think the sense of justice being made to those victims is a relevant metric to this debate. We think if you attack the powerful and responsibilize the powerful, you're bringing more justice to these victims. Before I continue, POI from Barghini.
Thank you. You're speaking about these people being ordered to do so, but many of these war crimes are done at individual level, even if the crimes are actually being forbidden by their armies or by their employers. So what happens?
Thank you. Have your 15 seconds. So I already addressed that in my model. Even if it's made on an individual level, we think the superior should be responsibilized because first they permitted that this soldier were part of the corporation. They didn't have the proper training, so we think the superior should be sued in his place. The third thing, the more we stand who should be responsibilized, obviously the employer. First thing, they are superior in their hierarchy. So if they are upper on the hierarchy, they have more power, more visibility, and so their omission is more morally reproachable. But the second thing, they often have benefits of these war crimes and political benefits, like if your soldier is fighting wars for natural resources overseas, you are gaining political from this, and you should be responsibilized. So three things in this speech: less war crimes just for victims, and moral responsibility we're very proud to propose.
Speaker for their speech. I would now like to call on Leader of Opposition.
Okay, hi. Hear me okay? I know what's the chat, so thanks. So if you have if you like, please tell me by here because I can know how to see the chat. Okay. So there's three things in my speech. Firstly, about what is the metric. Second, our rebuttal, and third, our arguments. So, firstly, we agree with OG that metric can be, for example, in which world we have like less of those crimes. We think that this is not a good metric because I think that you cannot guarantee this, and we cannot guarantee this because there are many factors that interfere with this kind of premise. But we think that both sides of the house can talk about, for example, how in which world we have the best trias. Why? Because we are talking about specifically the trias, and not in a future in which world we have like a better world without this kind of premise. I think that this is the best verdict, and we also agree with the victims that where are more reparation for victims. We agree with that. So, firstly, we're going to say something. Crimes against humanity can be, for example, like genocide, napalm bombardment, Nazi slavery, and all about the Second World War, about how Nazis thought that they were superior to Jews, and they killed them, and they did the genocide, and they, for example, did the displacement about this community. What there we have here? Firstly, about principles. I think that law is here to guarantee the justice in the side. I mean, for example, in case of genocide, the jail and the justice has the the moral obligation and the moral the right to do the victims the guarantee to know a good trial. I mean, if some people is culpable of anything, they have to choose and they have to speak on the law. We think that this is very important. And the principles of law are firstly to understand the facts. What I mean with that, for example, how it was in past, why what it happened, why these people are doing these things, and we think that these interviews, and we think that these interviews and this knowing is just possible in a site when you have the soldiers in front of you, and you can ask with them. You can ask them, hey, how was the experience? How was this? Why did you do this? And why did you just not regret, for example, to the orders of your superiors? We think that this is very important to understand all the context, all the social context, and this cannot happen if we, as a justice, just talk about with leaders or just talk about like the public figures that we think that they are responsible about this. We think that we have a better knowledge, a better context when we can speak with all the people, with the soldiers, with the people that they were the superiors, but they did the things. Where they did the things. So I think that this is very important to understand the context and to have a better point of view of all the war and all the crime, what happened. So in second phase, we have our consequences. What implies that a person is the liability or to have the whole responsibility. One, when we have this, we have to understand that this is the only people that have to rate like facts, and this is the only person that have to do guarantees to the justice. And we think that this is very, very bad because it's not enough. I mean, Hitler was not enough to do all the action by himself. He needed more people. He needed the soldiers. He needed more people. And we think that it's very important to understand that we prefer to speak and to have the whole panorama and the whole context, and this is only possible in our side of the house. But in second place, we have to understand that normally the soldiers, for example, were agree with the thinking about Hitler. For example, if I am a Nazi soldier, it's not like, oh no, I don't want Hitler, I don't agree with Hitler, but I'm going to kill Jews anyway. No, I as a soldier, as a Nazi soldier, I agree with Hitler. I mean, I think that I am superior to Jews. I think that the Jews have to die because the world is better without them. We think that this is so bad, and we think that they have responsibility too because they agree with the ideas of the crimes, or we think that they agree with the crimes and the principles that they were. So we think that they are not like innocent people that didn't know what they do. No, they know what they do, and even if we accept that they are like they have superiors, we think that the responsibility is still there. Yes, the POI.
Yes, panel, please be clear. We are we think that both kinds of people have to have the responsibility of their actions. It's not only the employer or not only the employee, are the both.
But that's no sense. Why? Because if I am not responsible of something, why should I go to the judge to speak with them? If I am responsible of something, I have to go to justice. I have to go and to give the explanation. But if it's not my responsibility, but it's not, I don't have to do this because one step is one step is first to have the responsibility and then to go, for example, to jail or to have to pay economic like salaries or whatever. But it's necessary to have the consent that you are responsible of something to go to the judgment, for example. We think that the responsibility and the kind or the capacity to have all this context and all this justice is less probable in your side than in our side. But in second place, that these people really agree with the doctrine, really agree with the principles, and this is so like so problematic because if they were agree, were more easy to go to kill the people. So if I really think that Jews are less than me and that I have to exterminate them, I have to have a genocide with them, it's probable that I'm going to do it. So for me, it's not a bad thing because I agree with that. So in that case, we think that it's more probable that the justice can be better if we understand that the people, like the employers that in this case can be like the soldiers or whatever, have the responsibility and have to render cons to the law. We think that is a better word for victims too. Why? Because if I am a victim, I just for example, you have to understand that you, because like you kill my partner or whatever, you have to be a cons and you have to go to jail, for example. I think my team is over, so I can.
Speaker for their speech. It's now time for the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Hello everyone, can you all hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start in a sec. I'm just drinking a glass of water. All right, first of all, commenting what the leader of the opposition said, we believe that the people who committed the crime effectively should also be punished. Just to clear that, we agree on closing government on that point if their fault is taken on the matter. Even today, the courts already don't take the excuse of I was taking offers anymore. This is no longer accepted. The question in this debate is whether we should punish who is a superior or who is the employer of this person as well. And by that, the superior thing, I think was already pretty clear on Giovanni's speech, but just to clear that out a bit more, we believe that this is a part of the employment system. The one who is, we're talking here about the people who are supposed to be aware of what you're doing because of the productive or the structural system on the job that you work for. When we talk about the one who's supposed to be aware, it's not the person who delegated that, it's not a person from another sector, it's the person who had the responsibility to know what's going on inside this person's own company or own system or own organization, whatever it is. A bit of framing to this debate. The first thing we need to talk about is when we're talking about courts such as the International Penal Tribunal, we're talking about courts who have an inability to punish because they cannot prove demands of direct participation on such crimes, which is a requisite. And on this point, these courts have already no efficiency. A bit more framing, we also need to talk about who commits such crimes, who is behind them, and who has the power to stop such crimes from being committed. And in this point, we're talking about richer and more powerful people, because in opening government, we actually believe that, yes, the war in Sierra Leone is profitable for some people. Some people are actually interested in the impacts of genocide and such atrocities. And on this sense, we believe that these things don't just happen, there are mothers to it, and therefore the responsibility should be enforced. But even if the opposition comes here to say that this is my conspiracy theory, I think we can go from a common basis, which is such crimes happen because many people are negligent about them happening. People are aware of genocide. And I'd like to take a second on my speech here, just to make clear how bad and how serious such crimes are. We're talking about crimes who deprive people from their human rights, who deprive people from their homes, their culture, their right to a national country, and more of such things. And when such damages are being caused because people are being negligent about them happening, yes, we believe a lot of people are aware of such things, and especially when we're talking about people who know or who should know and who have the means to stop, as Begossi has already talked about. We're talking about acts being done by people who follow their orders straightforward. On the sense, we believe that it's only fair that if you have people under your command that you're paying to do something, and these people are violating human rights while doing it, we believe that, yes, it should be your responsibility. Before we go on, Isabella, please.
Don't you think that the doctrine of vicarious liability necessarily means that the person liable is the employer and not the employee? So then the soldiers would have no fault for what they did under orders.
As I already stated, I believe this debate is about punishing both, but all my arguments and Giovanni's arguments still apply on the scenario in which only the liable person is being punished, because this is on the sense that we are arguing about. And now, if this motion passes, what do we have? First of all, my first argument, we can avoid status quo impunity, which already happens. People do not get punished in the status quo. People who are already involved on such things, who are already involved on investigations and such means on the judicial system, but since they cannot be proven as directly related, their negligence towards letting such things happen under their eyes on something that they should take responsibility for goes unnoticed. And on this sense, first of all, I'd like to clear that when I'm talking about negligence here, I'm talking about our best case scenario, the most likely scenario. We actually believe that these people who are powerful enough to get away with such things often have the knowledge and are actually behind it. And on this sense, we believe that these people should not go into it anymore. But why, if this motion passes, we can actually solve all these problems and fill in Giovanni's metricas? Because on this sense, we can create a narrative inside the judicial system in which, yes, everyone, especially powerful people who are actually behind it, is socially responsible to avoid such terrible crimes and to avoid such damages. It is necessary because today, this narrative, it is necessary because today what we have is justice that tries to avoid such crimes to happen is too restrictive. Not only it cannot punish, but it is also systematically incapable to set an avoiding those atrocities from happening system. This is what we have on our side. We can create a judicial security net because people who are behind such things, people who have a duty to know and to be aware of what's going on inside their institutions, now we are going to be afraid because we create a judicial precedent. And when we do that, first of all, we have a sanctioned possibility, even if opposition comes here and say, but you don't punish enough for that to be effective. Yes, it is effective. People are afraid to go to jail. They're afraid to be condemned on a court. And on this sense, you raise awareness. You raise awareness. And you can, when you raise awareness on this, you can incentive those employers to take responsibility better. Filling in Ojo, for instance, when he talks about people who give orders, have an incentive to act better, to be more vigilant, to take knowledge on what's going on inside their system. And more than that, on our scenario, we can create a judicial precedent, which is the obligation to be aware, which is only fair, not only, if not in all cases, in order to avoid such violations as the war crimes and crimes against humanity. We believe that it is only fair that we create this judicial precedent, which works as a security net, making people who are actually behind it afraid, so that they are more aware, so that they take better knowledge on what's happening, and they actually take better vigilance on how their employees are doing their jobs. On this sense, if opposition wants to win, they want to bring an impact so bad that matches this good impact we have, which is effective on having less of these types of crimes and on making powerful people more aware and more involved into avoiding this. Thank you very much. Very proud to propose.
That speaker for that speech. I now like to call on Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, I think you're fine.
All right. I'll be using Debate Keeper, so if by any chance you hear in the background this, already known bell like ring, that's because of that. All right. Panel, I want you to remember what happened after World War II. The heads, the main figures of the Nazi regime were in the Nuremberg trials. They were the ones that got hung. They were the ones that got death sentence. And the rank and file Nazi soldiers, they did atrocities, but they still walked free and they still roamed free in many cities. What happens? Remember, one of the metrics here is about the victims' perspective, the victims that remember a specific place that did harm them, that did atrocities to them, that did horrible, unfathomable things that they still remember, but they got away with that. Why? Because they can follow the narrative that, hey, we were just following orders. Talk to my superior about that, not to me. So that's the narrative that currently exists. So this to make the clash, to rebut the point that was mentioned by opening government about, hey, we are creating a new narrative. We are establishing a new narrative. No, you are actually perpetuating the status quo that allowed that to happen, that allowed the pilot of the Enola Gay, the airplane that dropped the atomic bomb, the nuclear bomb on a Japanese city. This guy is free. This guy never faced any trial. So we are perpetuating this awful narrative. So this, in order to clash with the narrative point, which was one of the consequences, already repeated. But before I continue, yeah, go ahead, closing government.
Yes, in our world, the victims are better repaired because the people who have more money repair to the victims because they have more power and they have more money because they control the system, you know?
Okay, but that's implying that victims are only care about money. Actually, many times they care about consequences. They care about closing a horrible episode in their stories, about in their lives, about getting to close cycles, getting to finish some stories. For example, here in Colombia, we are already facing lots of trials that talk about the long conflict, internal conflict that happened here in Colombia. So we got the peace process, the peace agreement. We got I mean, some things to make this process easy so we can get to process all what happened at individual level. Why was this so important for victims? Because victims, they had no idea where their disappeared relatives went, because they just disappeared, had no idea, had to consult, had to interview, had to listen and to hear the rank and file soldiers, the common soldiers, about where their disappeared and dead relatives went, where they massacred, where these people that got tortured went, what happened to them. Only them, only at that time, they can get to close their story, they can get to process what happened, they can get to finish this chapter in their lives. So that's why this is so necessary, to interview and to hear each and every single member, and not just put them all together into a higher case and call it a day. Yeah, opening government, go ahead.
Thanks. World War II is our example because superiors would never give those orders if now they are the center and the focus of judicial processes.
Yeah, but remember, for powerful people to have power, they depend on the rank and file members, which actually execute the orders. And let's remember a characterization here. Human beings are rational beings. Human beings have the ability to take decisions, to actually to ponder things. Actually, I think that this debate activity is one example of that. We can assume that some arguments can be better than other arguments, that some things can be justifiable, some other things cannot be justifiable, not acceptable. And eventually, this happens also in world scenarios. These are people. These are the people who have agency capacity, who have agency ability. So if these rational people if we actually get a new narrative that establishes that their responsibility is going to still be theirs, for them to answer about what they do in a war scenario, they actually have an incentive to, hey, I have to behave, because if by any chance I get caught, I'm going to be punished. I'm going to be asked about the things I did, because I did these things and I can't avoid these things. Many soldiers around the world, many employees have the option to use the objection of conscience to deny certain orders and to stop certain orders to happen. And you know what? This has stopped many heinous and horrible and awful and appalling cases and appalling possible crimes that can be avoided because soldiers were empowered to take decisions. So how do we get these people to take these decisions, to remember themselves that they are rational people, that they can that they are still responsible, if they can be still tried for this, if they can be judged by these actions, and if we remember them, that they are part of a bigger picture, of a bigger scheme of things, in which they are the ones executing the orders, if they are the ones that make those orders possible and that make those orders true. That's what being responsible means. They are still part of something. They are required of something. I mean, let's talk about fire. I know this sounds silly, but let's talk about fire. For you to have fire, you need oxygen, you need a spark, and you need a fuel. If you remove one of any of those things, you just don't get fire, period. That's the end of that. What happens with a high rank official that has no spark and that has no fuel, which are the rank and file members? Simply, there are no crimes to be committed. Also, this is very connected to your point, making the clash with the opening government point of the officials being the root of the problem. But this is not about a single root that exists in a vacuum, in a void space. This is about a complex net of relations that needs everything working together to make these things possible. So we have made the clash with the root of the problem thing. We have stated why the victims are getting the best case scenario in our case. And also we have talked about how responsibility depends and relies on the mutual collaboration of these actors. Thank you.
Thank you to the Deputy Leader of Opposition. I would now like to call on
I couldn't hear well what was said, but I guess, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. I'm gonna make timer. The position at stake is that what democracy, this doctrine, can make the employers liable to act for their. For example, they tell us like, oh yeah, soldiers could have said no. Used to do these kind of things because, as I said, these are vulnerable people most of the time. So what happens if I say no to Hitler? He's gonna kill me, of course. And this is something that is not taken into consideration from the side of the opposition. But we believe, okay, playing in their world, even if only one people would be prosecuted or would be like responsible for the actions, we still think that it should be the employer, because in the end they are the ones that got the control of the situation, and they got a better capacity to repair for the damages caused. What happens if we prosecute only the employee? What's going to happen? The employee, as I said already, is a vulnerable person, which means, first of all, he doesn't got much money. Second, he probably doesn't get like doesn't have the means to like resolve to the victims. So at least we prefer a world where this can be restored, and it's only going to happen if the big companies, the big leaders, are going to be taken responsible for the actions of their employees. In their world, actually the victims are getting nothing, because if I'm poor, I won't be able to like to pay this person what is unreasonable. In that case, they think that yeah, they're telling us that the things are gonna be only understand in their side of the world, because we're gonna have a better cycle, and they're only gonna look into the soldiers and stuff if they are taking responsibility. Damages, because if the employee goes to jail, they can just hire someone else and still committing the same crimes. But if we stop the responsible stopping all these damages, and that's something that works only on a side of the house. So the way this vicarious doctrine works is that both parts are going to be responsible. We're not saying the employee should not be responsible. He's still acting. He's still making an illegal action. But we believe that the employers should also be responsible because they have a better way of paying back to solving the damages. Second, I don't know if there's PO. Oh yeah, I'll take a POI of.
Understand that if I am liable for someone else's actions, that means I am responsible for someone else's actions. Therefore, that person is not responsible for their own actions. So the employer would be the only one responsible.
We believe this is not true. As I explained already, what's happening in the status quo is that both people are responsible. The info slide doesn't tell us that it's only gonna be one. It's only gonna be the employer. It just tells us that the employer is gonna have like is gonna be responsible for the actions of the employees. But as I said already, even if this happens, even if only the employer is the one that's gonna be responsible, we're still in a better situation because, as I said, these are the guys that control the situation in the world. These are the guys that got the money, that got the power, that can keep committing these war crimes and stuff. So those are the ones that should be on that should be trial, and those are the ones that should be in jail. This is a basic trade-off where we have the person that make the immediate action free, but at least we are solving more problems in our side of the world. So
We thank that speaker for their speech. It's now time for the member of opposition.
First of all, can everyone confirm me by chat if they hear me right? Great, thanks. So I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. Panel, we think that all government cases are completely wrong because we understand in emotion that if we support something, it's obviously that we're not supporting the other side. We think that a government really read bad emotion and is completely unfair to our opposition counterfactual. Look how they try to acquire all counterfactuals, just blaming both parties. We think that this motion encourages to take one side because it's a support motion. Note that, panel. We think it's completely unfair. But rather of that, we're going to play their game because we are going to win and we have to play both games. So first of all, little framing. Panel, look why we still have war crimes on Middle East, even if they have passed a lot of different leaders in United States, because the war crimes and the crimes against humanity goes rather by an ideology, not by a completely leader or a specific employer. We think that that ideology is the way that promotes the war crimes, and that is the main goal to take out this by root is taking the bad elements. That is really, really important. So look how Klaus in government tried to sell us that damages can be repaired by money. No, panel, on crimes against humanity, you can repair by money. That's so important to notice. Now, we're going to make some framing that we think is really important, and you will notice how our case clash directly with both governments, and Isabella is going to make their rebuttals. First, we think that we have to understand when you are liable of something, when you are liable of committing a crime, three things. One, when you have the intention to do. Two, when you know the consequences, and three, when it's premeditated. We think that, and it becomes from your own thinking. We think that three things are really important in the way that how is the nature of war crimes. When do you commit war crimes? We think that it's more probable to you to commit a war crime if you're really fully committed with the ideology. We think that someone that is no truly committed with, for example, Nazism, is not going to kill civilian people because it's not the fact that they are leaders. We think that they are completely sure what they are doing and they know the consequences. Note that when you know the consequences and you have the intention, you are directly liable for something. In that way, it's super important to point that. Second of all, what is the scope of the military? We think that everyone assumes that the scope of military is go to kill civilians. That is completely false, because the scope of a military or a politician is to protect your country. Or second one, even though that was true, you know where are you joining? And that point was really clear by the leader of government. He just told they know where they are going, and this is completely important to understand why are you liable to do something, because you know what you're doing and you know the consequences. This is so important, and all government just forgot that. Note this like logic flow. First, our argument of liability. Look how I am liable. I have a liability when I understand my actions and I understand my consequences. Look this example. You can't judge a little kid that killed someone because we understand that he can understand all the context, all the status quo, and all the things that he have to understand in order to understand that this is really bad. Note that this example is completely legal-like to our case. It's so important to point that. Second, we think that the scope is completely important because you're not joining to a mercenary group. You're not joining to a military illegal ground. You think you're joining to the military or the politics. And when you have a specific scope of protecting your country, when you're committed to kill somebody, you're going outside the scope. But we think that it could be unfair. So yeah, we're going to play on that side. Third, we think that it's so important that we have to consider, for example, how is the argument that following orders is so bad? We think that they don't understand why this is of the following orders. Look that they constantly show that they know what they are doing. We think that this is incredibly important because government tried to figure it out that our little soldiers don't know anything about war crimes and they are just following order as little llamas, for example. They are between and they know and they have the commit of what they are doing. And look how all of these war crimes, all of these things go further than the leaders. Look how government just say us that if we cut out the leaders, we're going to cut out all the problem. This is completely false because this goes rather than an ideology rather than a leader. So they got impregnated by an indoctrinated and no matter the leader. That's the reason we still have Nazism and we still have war crimes over Middle East. That is completely important. And the way that we are going to achieve a better justice system is if we just take out the bad elements. That is completely important, panel. Just point out that. We're going to take an opening government point.
Thank you. If you should sue the superior, they have the incentive to do preventive measures like better selection and training
Thank you,
to
Giovanni.
avoid the individual conduct, you say.
I understand your point. look how we're in a war situation, war status quo, and we think that is kind of true, but consider the status quo is more probable that this leader just hire mercenary and illegal military grounds, and they are still not being responsible. Look how that is completely important, and they don't answer that question. They just said, we cut out the leader and we cut out everything. We think that argument is not completely. It is sure it does not cut the problem from roots. We just understand how the liability process works, and we think that our case is completely important in the way that all the people is completely knowing what they are doing, and they are not just following order, because when you're committing a war crime, you're completely knowing what you're doing, because I don't know that everyone will go outside and kill some civilians. That is completely improbable. And we think that we just explain you how is this flow of liability works. How unfair in the way that we have to support, and it
to the member of opposition. It's now time for the government whip.
Okay, can you hear me well? I'm going to read
Yes.
the motion for to try the listening, right? The doctrine of vicarious liability states that employees are liable for the actions of their employees. If their employees they acted within the scope of their employment. It's okay?
Yes, that is the correct motion.
Panel, very basic rebuttals to the opposition, because I think the case of closing opposition is really easy to rebuttal, right? They say that the people is all responsible of the actions because they are persuaded because of the actions, and they really believe that. The question to reveal that is why they believe that. They believe that because a leader or a people who control them persuade to them to do these actions. They not only are persuaded because of magic or not only incentives, they are persuaded because a leader changed their mind, like wash their brain, and makes to them to believe that make these bad actions are really justice or are really good to do. So if their people are persuaded to torture someone or to kill someone in a crime war, is because they have an order or they are already persuaded for a leader who have the control of their mind or have the control of their position in life. So the point of the ideology, it's really, really rebuttable when you try to thinking about the mechanisms of why this happens in the world. So even if we don't have this incentive, we think these people, if these people don't persuade them, these people know about this ideology because of the leader. So give the responsibility of the leader. It's really important because they are the cause or the origin to that action in the ideology, in the doctrine of to get this action. So they would have the responsibility, and we are really proud to propose that. Another point, but this is of the opening opposition, and we think it's the only point comparative in this debate, is about to get the truth for the victims. We think we can get the truth for the victims in both worlds. Why? Because the people who make those actions are people who are already persuaded by the leader or who are already controlled by the leader. When these people are like in a position who are being judging, you know, these people have the incentive to give the truth, and also they maybe believe that they are right, so they are gonna say the truth. We have the truth in both words, so we are simply rebuttal of all the important things of the opposition. But furthermore, as I explained, a point that is really important in this debate, and is how the responsibility is make it, right? Or it have a reason, and how the doctrine that we propose, it's really important. It's because there is really a real next with the consequences and the origins or the causes. Why? Because they have the control, because they have the they give to the employees like all of items to act, and also not only give them like the orders, give them the material, give them the weapons, give them all of things to do that. So they have a lot of responsibility of that fact. Also, he explained that they usually can say no. Why they can say no? Because they are under the orders of these kind of people, leaders, people who have all the control of them, and also have the resources to do these actions. So these people are persuaded. Also, with my rebuttal, we can know that these people are persuaded to do these things. So they have, and we are really demonstrate that they have all the important control of this kind of violations to human rights. So we can't believe and we can't support something that only the employee have the responsibility, because they have lots of things under them to make connections of responsibility for the leader, for the employer, or for the people who have the control of these things. Also, he explained that the people who have this position of control are really in a better position to repair the damage. We prefer that people who have money, the people who had the control, repair this damage, because they are more responsibility first, and second, they have more possibilities to repair or to pay really big amounts of money to repair this kind of things, so this kind of damage. So we, in the perspective of the big pocket, the people who have more money and the people who have more capacity to get regret or to repair the damage, we are winning this debate. This is only exclusive or on this debate. And also, as I explained, something really important, the even if, right? The even if about including the employee, don't have responsibility, and only the employee or the superior, right? Have the responsibility. We have a better word, because we have a word who these people who have the power and who have the resources to do this kind of damage don't have the incentives to commit these kind of crimes again. So we are incredibly proud to propose in this debate, closing opposition, win this debate. Thank you so much.
We thank the speaker for their speech. It's now time for the opposition whip.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, panel, we're going to start by rebutting the case that closing government has brought to us. Then we're going to move on to opening government, and then we're going to separate ourselves from opening opposition. So the thing is that opening government tells us that if I'm not a superior, then there are consequences if I refuse, and I don't have control of the situation, and I'm a vulnerable person that has no monies and no means to repay. The note how this makes a straight clash with what Adrian said about the ideology. This means that these people don't have any intent to refuse. So the consequences if I refuse, they're washed because I, as a subordinate, don't have the intent to refuse because I believe in this ideology, because I believe in the things that I'm doing, that I'm committing, that end up being war crimes. Then they tell us that they understand the way justice works and that then they would have no means to repay. As Adriana already told you, this is not how justice works. Justice, when we're talking about war crimes and crimes against humanity, cannot be repaid. When a verdict is reached, no amount of money is asked from any of the parties because they understand that crimes against humanity cannot be repaid with money. So this point, that is one of their strongest points, has no meaning in this debate. They tell us that we're stopping the damages and we're stopping the crimes, but basically we're also stopping the damages and stopping the crimes if we're making responsible the people that are actually on the ground doing these crimes, not only the people that are giving the orders. Then closing government comes with a rebuttal to our case, and they tell us that leaders persuade people and that I can persuade you to kill and torture someone, and I basically, because I am your superior, have a mind control power over you. We do not believe this is true at all. They have not tell us how this actually works, and we believe that even if this were true, that leaders can persuade their subordinates, we still cover the other sides of liability. That would be that that I know what I'm doing, that I understand what I'm doing, and that I am an adult that knows consequences. Even if the leader persuades me to kill someone, that doesn't mean that I don't know that the consequences that is that the person I'm gonna kill is gonna be dead. I am still liable for my actions. That's basically it from closing government. They really didn't bring much of a case, but let's move on to opening government. They tell us that the thing is that opening government is not understand emotion, because if someone, as I've said in 2 POIs, if someone is liable, then it means that someone else is not liable, but it doesn't matter. They tell us that leaders have a macro vision of what is going on, and that this is why leaders should be liable. But the thing is that even if I'm a soldier that is on the ground, that doesn't mean I can't have a microvision. That doesn't mean I can understand the true scope of what is going on. And so I think that this point is a wash, because it depends on the individual if he's narrow-minded or not. So even if I'm a leader, I cannot have microvision, and even if I am soldier, I can have it, because they never explain to us how I get this microvision and the ways that this happens. They tell us that it's more justice for the victims, and the victims do not feel justice if you persecute a soldier. I believe this is completely untrue. Victims would feel more justice if I persecute a soldier, because the soldiers are the one actually committing the act. So as they said, if someone comes in and rapes my sister during a war, then I'm gonna want to see the guy that actually raped my sister be on trial and be responsible, and I'm gonna want to see that guy be brought to justice and not be able to hide behind the fact that he was ordered to break into my home. Then they tell us people don't get punished on the status quo. We don't believe this is true. Many people have been punished for war crimes. They tell us, and this is their big impact, they tell us that they set a judicial precedent for people to be more careful and give orders. I'm going to give you the POI in a minute, opening government, just hang in there. They tell us that they set a judicial precedent, and that is their big big impact. The fact is that there are already judicial precedents for people in charge being brought to justice for war crimes. What there are no judicial precedent for is the fact that soldiers also be brought to justice, and that soldiers cannot hide behind the fact that they were told to do something and then get out of justice. So actually this impact is already the status quo, is already something that is happening, and it doesn't have a real impact because people still commit war crimes, even if there is a chance that then I'm gonna be charged for the war crime, because that is not how people who are in war think. Let's give the POI to opening government before time's up.
Thank you. In our side, you have a deterrent mechanism that is the net responsibility, while opposition don't solve the problem of neglect.
Okay, the thing is that all of the government bench have been talking about neglect and how these things happen because of labor neglect and because the superiors are not in charge the way they should be. But this is not what happens in wars. In wars, this is not like something happens because, oops, I forgot to tell the troop exactly what to do and I'm being negligent, and then that is why I'm liable. That does not happen on wars. On wars, that is not how it goes. So basically, we win because we have told you that that you cannot charge these people with the doctrine of vicarious liability because the scope of the military does not cover war crimes. This is the most important thing that Adrian said, and this is the most important thing in the debate. We have explained to you why I am liable, because because it is premeditated, because I know the consequences, because I understand what I'm doing and I understand what is going to happen if I do. And then also because there is a scope of the job that is very important, and the scope of the military is not to follow war crimes. So then the doctrine of vicarious liability makes no sense in this debate. This is why closing opposition wins, just as the other speaker said.
Thank you all speakers for your speeches. The judges and I are now going to go into the deliberation room, but on my understanding, you speakers are now all allowed to leave. So yeah, thanks for a good debate and good luck.
Todo esto es culpa de Pepe por decir que ganaba closing opposition.
And with that, we finish this debate of the first room of ASL from the UDC
It would be funny if the judges
Thank
were like,
you, everyone, to be
closing
here,
governments,
and thank you to subscribe
really
of
going
our
well, but
YouTube
in
channel.
the end, the
Let's see you on the break
all the
of
cases of
open
opposition
break
because they said that.
debate of the open break of from UDDC, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. See you.